probably like a third of a tank of fuel. There's a deep flaw in the filtration system on these, and I simply don't understand it. I'm not talking about Stihl chainsaws being bad. Inside the carburetor. Welcome to the Okie Woodsman channel. Today we're discussing the world where Echo is #1 in design. What we're talking about is the design that each of the companies, Echo, Husqvarna, and Stihl, all choose to employ today. One caveat is I do not own a modern Stihl chainsaw, so I won't be able to show you, but I think that the idea of what I'm talking about can be seen across the board, whether it be a 500i, 462, 661, 261, and all the rest. Stay tuned. I also want to be clear that this is not talking about the saws in general. This is talking about a particular feature. And I think it's an important feature. The reason why it's an important feature is so often the cleanliness of the filtration system is blamed on why a saw failed. If you are so daring as to show an air cleaner that is packed with some chips or some fines in it, be prepared for some comments saying you're running your saw with a dirty air cleaner. I wonder how many of you religiously clean your air cleaner throughout the day? And if you do, what model saw do you primarily cut with, and does it bother you? Please share below. I believe that these three chainsaws represent the philosophy that the companies have adopted going forward. What we have is a 562 XP. This air filtration system is similar to the larger models, a 572 and 592, though those are larger. What I find interesting is this 562 XP and this 545 up here on the wall both use the same air cleaner. I have an MS460, and this is by no means a modern saw, but this is definitely one of the saws that Stihl has built their reputation on. This and the 044, along with the 660. And then we have the brand new to me Echo CS7310. I had been told repeatedly that this saw had the best air filtration of any saw out there. I have intentionally been neglecting the air filtration on this saw. I assure you there is no funny business going on. I'm going to estimate to the best of my ability about how many tanks of fuel I have through it, and we're going to take a look together at what that air system looks like. I think we might be amazed. This saw right here, I think we all know what to expect. If you're being realistically honest, we all know what to expect inside of this air cleaner. Now this saw here, Husqvarna, in my opinion, from what I can tell from days of old, and from my experience with saws such as that good old one right there, 395 XP, and the 372 setup, by rights, Husqvarna was the one to beat. And I'm going to tell you right now, I think personally that they've been beaten. And not only that, I think I want to place them in third place. And it's because of one very important flaw. Initially, upon inspection, everything looks good. But if you're not familiar with these saws, and I'm not the only one saying it, there's a deep flaw in the filtration system on these, and I simply don't understand it. What we'll do now is we'll pop off each of these cleaners, and I'm going to talk to you about the maintenance that I do on these, which is really not very much. I am going to be completely honest there. And I think that this is a relevant conversation because of this. I think that the setup on this Echo is kind of reminiscent of what you see on some Stihl saws, like maybe the 261 and the 400. We've got 3/4 turn fasteners that you use with a scrunch. These are very stiff. I'm going to pull the top cover there. If you've been watching the channel, you know that I have a tendency to gravitate towards this saw. I absolutely love running it. It's not my most powerful, but I'm going to say that this is the single-handedly most fun saw I own. I love operating it. I really like it with this Versacut 20-inch light bar on it. It's just an absolute pleasure to run. Basically good enough for most circumstances. This air cleaner here has been slightly neglected. Okay, you're gonna see plenty of kind of fines caked up on there. What you're not gonna see is a bunch of chips packed into this air box. That can be seen as a positive. However, just because this thing is keeping a lot of the bigger chips out of the system doesn't mean that the air cleaner is sufficient for the needs of cutting. Please spare me the comments of if you had a sharp chain, you wouldn't have the fines. That's simply not the case when you're cutting in the real world. If you are cutting big softwood bucks that put out the most beautiful, marvelous chips, that might be the case. But when you're cutting on dead hardwoods or dry hardwoods, and really oak in general, there's some fines out there. That's all that's to it. I have this cranked down so tight because Wes Mitchell is one of the people that has talked about the flaws of this air cleaner. He thought maybe what we're going to see here was caused by this loosening up. I'm not so sure. I love this setup. It looks and feels quality initially. It really does. This is the flocked air cleaner that they've got. When you look inside of there, you know, overall it looks pretty decent. But we're going to take a look now inside the throat of the actual carburetor. It's going to be hard to see, but I want you to see this. Do you see all that? My opinion is that this is not neglect. My opinion is that a tool ought to be able to be used the way intended. Chainsaws are used in harsh conditions. Everything is not optimal at all times. Let me go ahead and wipe this out with my finger and we'll kind of take a look at it here. We'll use another one here. That is oily fines. A lot of people blame some of the running problems that these saws have historically had off of some ingestion. I don't know about that. When I was having more problems with this saw, which I do believe that muffler resolved right there, but when I was having troubles with this saw, people blamed my air cleaner. If I had to estimate this, this has probably got at least 5 tanks or more without me touching it. All right, now you may say, well, there's your problem right there. I would argue against that. From my experience, this saw gets fines in it immediately. This is not because I'm sucking through so many fines, it has no choice but to suck them in. This filter is slightly dirty. It is not clogged by any means. Okay, that's my opinion. Tell me if I'm wrong in the comment section. Let's move on to the bad boy right here. This saw is a fantastic piece of equipment. I trust this saw for good, hard work, and excellent performance. And I have a couple of examples of air cleaners. This is a brand new aftermarket air cleaner that I put on here. And I will show you what I had on it before. I had been running this Redbeard Saws kit that TriStar Supplies supplied me with. And by the way, that exhaust cover, things like this, the clone saw, those performance parts, clone saws, and other items can be had for 10% off using my discount code OKI10. Links and discount code down in the description. Joe, why did I take this off? Well, I'll tell you why I took it off. Inside of here, I have the factory filter. I do not believe that this in particular gave extra performance. That's not what this did. This did not, in my opinion, give extra performance. I didn't have to tune the carburetor at all once this was on the saw. This is the original factory setup here. This unit has the outer cover that I think is very needed on a Stihl saw. And the reason why is these saws ingest chips. Now keep in mind, we're going to look at a saw that is leaps and bounds better than both of these in all regards, I think. We got the outer cover. This is good because, you know, it keeps the chips from going in there and clogging the pleats. Then this takes care of the fines. We'll take a look at the inside of this cover. This is old. All right, I've never washed it. It has some oil and I'm guaranteed there's some fines in there. I don't think that these are considered like the best of the best type filtration. But with the Stihl saw, you must realize that this probably represents 5 tanks. I'd say probably about 5 tanks. No big secret here. I have a channel and we talk a lot about this stuff, but I am not like Russ Willie at Willie's Firewood. They burn up to, I believe, if I understand him correctly, they burn 15 gallons of 2-stroke a week. I've talked about that in other videos. I don't burn 15 gallons of 2-stroke in a year. That's just the truth. So when I talk about these things, I don't represent that professional that cuts for hours and hours every week. I don't process 20 cords a week of firewood like Russ Willie, his Gramps, and Kevin do. That's not what I do. I'm a property owner. I have an aspiring side hustle in firewood. It's going well. I love running saws, but I have a bunch of them, and there's more down here. I simply am not going to run 10 gallons of fuel through one saw in a week. It's not going to happen. If I were on a big job where I was cutting firewood all day long, I would swap my saws out. You can cut a lot of firewood with a gallon of fuel. This represents, no joke, probably like 1/3 of a tank of fuel. Let's take a look inside of here. Really nice and clean. Share with me if you like these aftermarket type filters, or if you would never ever put something like this on your beloved Stihl chainsaw. Let's take a look here. We do have chips starting to pile up inside of this filter. Let's see if we can just tap it out here. Look at all that. That just fell out. This was a completely clean, and look at that. We've still got more in there. No funny business here. This is just the reality of running a Stihl chainsaw. Again, I'm not talking about Stihl chainsaws being bad. I'm just talking about, you know, when I ran a 661 or a 460, it might have been a 462, honestly. I don't remember, and I don't have pictures of it. When I ran those saws at work, the air cleaner was always dirty. Like every single tank. But I think it's done its job. Keeping this clean, you can see definitely a line of crud and no crud. Am I going to run this foam filter? I don't think so. And the reason why is if this were a saw more like this or more like that, that doesn't suck so much into the filtration system, I would probably contemplate running a foam with oil impregnation in it. And the reason why I just don't want to is this is just kind of a nuisance. Like, I don't really want to deal with this. One of the ways to deal with it is you can blow it off, but then you still got to clean the oil out, re-lubricate it, and that's just too much to do, I think, for a saw like this that's going to ingest that much every single time you cut with it. If you are serious about cutting, and let's say you cut a gallon a day, who wants to deal with this? I'll just go ahead and tap this out periodically during usage, blow it out at the end of the day or before next use, whatever, and that would work. But this saw here, I'm going to have to rank this number 2 behind Echo. And I'm classifying all of the modern Stihls, and forgive me if I'm wrong, and please share in the comment section. All of the saws still, this is a common trait. They just suck chips. That's not saying they're bad saws, but it's just something to be aware of. And this is where Stihl and Husqvarna can absolutely learn from this saw right here. Is this 7310 going to live up to all the hype that I've heard? I've heard that this saw has the best filtration system. And by the way, the 32-inch bar in the stock dogs, it doesn't really want to sit flat. We're going to let it be like that. All right, 7310 stock setup. I'm going to estimate 5 to 6 tanks, maybe 7 on this. This has not been tapped out. This has not been blown out. I have done nothing to it. In fact, I've not looked inside of the throat on the carburetor. So we're going to look at that together. So I might have to eat my words here. This thing could be full of fines and I may not know it. But I want to focus here for a second at what you see and what you don't see. Look at this. Let's get onto a better camera lens here. Look at this, guys. All right? I want to show you what Echo has done. There's some chips laying down there. Let's see if when I flip the saw over, if there's more piled up on this side. There's not. All right? So of course you see some fines. It's sucking air. It's an air cleaner. But Echo has designed this brilliantly in terms of air filtration. Now, together for the first time, I'm going to set this up on a tripod so that way you can see unbroken. I want to do this unedited so that way you know for sure that the Okie Woodsman doesn't have a beef with the other manufacturers and just wants to make Echo look better than the rest. Now again, I'm not talking about performance, I'm not even talking about longevity, but I think there's an argument to be had about longevity. And this saw actually does perform fairly well. It's not extremely exciting to run in stock form. But let's take this off here. I'm not even sure what to expect. Is this a nut? No, okay, it comes off. Oh yeah, okay. We're going to show this cleaner here. I see some sheen. We're not going to get a good look inside of it. But what we will do is we will look at the carburetor itself. I do see a little bit of a, I just mostly see shine. There is a little bit of dust. I think maybe a little bit in the oil. But let's take a look inside the carburetor. Nice. I'm going to change from, I'm on 2, now I'm going to go to 1 so that way I can have it not be so jittery. You all, can you see that? That is sparkling. There is an oil sheen to it. But what we're not seeing is a ton of dust in there. I think there is like that one that looks like a sparkle. That might be something. This saw has not been cleaned. I've not blown it off. Now we'll say this, that almost looks like there's like leakage on that. That's not cool. These things suck. I hate decomps, especially on saws like an Echo that just simply don't have the compression to need it. And what's terrible is the Echo decomps are extremely expensive. There is actually an Echo part number from my understanding, but they're expensive. And again, this saw just doesn't need it. It just does not need it. So to keep this saw clean inside of there, I'm going to go ahead and throw this on here and we'll kind of wrap up. I'm not going to clean this. It's good. I don't have air readily available here. And I'm shooting some more videos. I don't feel like getting all dusty and grimy right now. So we went ahead and put that on. This is incredible. Look at the system that they've done. Now, I will say this, maybe all this air cleaning adds to the weight of this saw. This top cover is one of the heaviest I've seen. You've got like this air, this is like a duct to bring air in, and like you can see this thing's like a Dyson vacuum or something, man. Like it shoots the air into here, swirls around, and does phenomenal things. But I think it might add to the weight. It really might. I said that this is not characteristic of all Echo and all Husqvarna saws. I think the Stihl is pretty representative of Stihls in general, but the saw you see sitting up on the shelf here This one has an aftermarket air cleaner. We'll take a look at it just in case you haven't seen one. Welcome if you're new. See this cool sticker on here? That right there represents, that means that this saw is awesome underneath the hood. This is a ported saw done by Super Dave Outdoors. There's lots of information on my channel about it. You can see me put the ported cylinder on, void the warranty on this saw. Talk about first impressions on this. Also, I did just run this saw with 32-inch bar for the very first time, and I was pretty impressed. There should be already a video out on that as well. All right. So this replaces the much maligned and terrible stock filter that these 620s come with. In fact, they're so bad out of the box that you need to go to Harbor Freight, go buy O-rings. See that black one right there? And these two other black ones? They are an absolute necessity to keep this saw from ingesting fines at a greater rate than either of those two saws right there. We got that cover that keeps the large chips from going in here and plugging up the pleated filter on this. This is a 3D printed filter base and whole system for the 620, and I am impressed. This was given to me by Alex at A2 Designs. He's the designer of this. He has a fortune in time and money into designing this. If you have a 590, a 620, 600p, I believe, or he even has stuff for 501s and 4910s, because those also had bad filtration systems on them. I'll put a link down in the description as well. But this is absolutely incredible. He's done a good job with this, and I think I'm going to have a very clean intake on this saw going forward with this. This with the O-rings does pretty good, but these are just hokey because these are made to split, to clean apart. You know, you can split them, but then I always find that the seam doesn't exactly go back together the way it did originally over time. You can buy these, they're fairly reasonable, but who wants to do that? I want something good. This is a fantastic value in saws, and the only thing I've ever really complained about is this right here, and this solves it. I anticipate this. Normally it's Stihl guys that get their feelings hurt by not being #1. But this time it could be Husky guys. And I'm going to say this. They're going to say, whoa, what about the 372? What about the 372? Well, the 372, yes, you can get the X-Torques. But who wants an X-Torque? I mean, they're good. But really, no one wants the X-Torque. They really want the 372 OE model that is no longer sold, at least in the United States. Let's not talk about the good old days, because in Stihl, you know, guys could be, whoa, the 044. Well, they don't make that saw anymore. So it's irrelevant. You have to buy a clone or you have to buy a good used one. We can talk about, you know, you can buy a 395 today, but for kicks and giggles, we'll look at one of the best and simplest air cleaner designs you've ever had in existence, and that's this right here. This is Husqvarna's shining example of how to do it. This saw has a couple tanks through it. We'll take a look at this. Probably three. That's all. Don't have a lot of time on it. I've got a lot of saws to run. All right. We'll do the same thing on this. This is 372 design, and I'm going to say it's probably my favorite design because it's simple. What you'll see is you don't have excessive chip buildup in there. Yes, you do have fines because it is sucking air. Let's go ahead and take this off and look inside together. I love this filter setup. It's so incredibly simple. It's effective, and everything is very, very accessible. The 7310 I think does work better because it keeps really a lot of the dirt out of even getting to the filter. But it does do that at the sacrifice of accessibility on all of this. Look how wide open this is now. Why couldn't the 562 be this good? That's a gorgeous intake right there. An absolutely gorgeous intake. Husqvarna, how did you screw up your design? How come a simple air cleaner like that and that effective of one isn't on the newer saws. I'm not saying that they're not good. I'm not a person that says that 5 Series saws are bad. I love them. I think I've never had a 572 or 592, but I want one dearly. But look at this, guys. This is a clone Chinese saw. The Chinese have copied what Husqvarna did years and years and years ago in the 90s. And the crazy thing is it's, in my opinion, better than what they're doing today. I'm not trying to be offensive here. I'm just trying to give you the straight facts as I see them, or maybe the opinion as the Okie Woodsman sees them. My name is Joe. If you're new here, let me know down in the comments. Thank you to everyone that's down in that comment section, to all the people that have been here since the very beginning. We're growing rapidly. We're doing great things. And I just wanted to wait and see what this was going to do before I talked about it more. I'm super impressed with that saw. Remember, if you are looking for a Husqvarna or Echo chainsaw, sawsuppliers.com, discount code OKIE10. You get the best deal on that 7310, the new version of the 562. Mind you, this is the Mark 1. They do have a Mark 2. This is the Mark 2 545, a delightful saw, 100% fantastic. Echo and Husky, also things like chains, two-stroke oil, all of that. Make sure you check them out using the links below. Discount code OKIE10 on outdoor power equipment. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.